Hello, circuit riders and friends of Mosaic. I'm Pastor Kelly, and this is The Sanctuary, a podcast where we talk to people who have left the church but are finding their way back home. Today, I am excited for our very first podcast to have Captain Shel, our family minister, and they're going to share with us their story of growing up in the church and how they found the church that they call home now. Welcome, Shelby.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm excited. I'm so
Yes.
excited for this podcast.
Me too. I'm excited to learn how we can do church better and to learn about people's journeys.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the church you grew up in.
So I grew up in a very sizable Southern Baptist church. And, I think I was fortunate in a lot of ways that because I think they knew of the attention it would draw, maybe they didn't really talk about the hot button issues.
Yeah.
I think they would say my dog. Here we go. Okay. Sit down, Sam. There we go. Good boy. Yes. So I think that they would say that they just let the Bible speak for itself on those topics, and just kind of they would, read the verses and talk about the wider context, but kind of would try to not discuss too much some of the more contentious issues relating to LGBTQ things, and they would not talk about slavery and how the Bible was used in that regard, and they just kind of would try to avoid a lot of those issues. And I think it's really disappointing in a lot of ways too, looking back on it though, because I don't know, I see churches like that and they have such a, privileged position where they can use their voices for so much good and don't. And so the more I think about my church, the more I'm grateful for how I don't have a lot of trauma, thankfully, from it, but also disappointed in how they weren't doing more to truly further the kingdom of God.
Tell me some really good memories, some of those childhood memories that you hold on to that are very dear to you about your church.
I was really fortunate that we had such a huge youth group. And it was really, really amazing in my grade alone, there was 50 kids.
Whoa.
In just my grade. And so we were one of the larger grades, but still we had so many friends there, and friends who actually have gone on to very similar deconstruction journeys of their own. I've lost touch with a lot of them, but one in particular, we still talk all the time. And it's been really cool to see how we were able to find each other in that space because there were so many people, and
diverse.
We were able to kind of weather some of that storm together. But yeah, we also just were able to build a really, really beautiful community in that regard. And also I met my wife there. So that's pretty awesome too. I mean, obviously we weren't out at the time. But yeah, it's just, it's really awesome that in that place, even though we, don't have the same views that the church that we grew up in has, I mean, we can still go back and still visit people, and we can still, I can take my family over there. My son can play on the playground there. I don't have the fear that a lot of people have from the church they grew up in. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. And I have a lot of fun, silly memories from lock-ins and and different trips. We had this camp that we would go to every year where we would stay up late playing these games like Candy Wars, where we would just take over the entire mountain, and the counselors had to guard these buckets, and we were trying to get Jolly Ranchers into the buckets, and people would go all out. There were people bringing ghillie suits. Like, so that way they could like
camp
sneak
games are
through.
war, yes.
It was war for sure.
I have lots of good camp memories too. I think I think part of the building block of church is it creates who we are.
Yeah.
Like even if we deconstruct, we still hold on to some of those special memories.
Exactly.
Was your family every time the church was open, or was it we go on Christmas, Easter, and occasionally?
Oh, we were there every Sunday. It was like, even if you're not feeling good, okay, fine. But if it's just a mild headache, you're still going to church.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much an entire Sunday. We would go to the service in the morning. There was Sunday school afterwards, or Bible fellowship is what they started calling it after a little while. I remember still most of the time called it Sunday school, but I'm trying to say Bible fellowship. So that way it didn't feel like school. Yes. And then, we'd go out to lunch. We would go home for a little bit and then turn around and come right back, because then I had our youth choir, and I had drama club, and if anybody remembers that Lifehouse skit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got the lead a few times. I was pretty proud of that. And then after that we would have the large group choir, and I really loved the choir growing up. I am not really a singer, but there was like 200 people in the youth choir, so my voice blended with all the others.
It worked out.
But I know mission trips and stuff. So
I know that you moved, so part of your journey was finding another church when you moved. But tell us about the journey of trying to find a church, and what kind of made you maybe step back from that constant participation.
Yeah, so we moved, and then we were trying to find a church, in a new town, and we tried a Baptist church that just wasn't affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, just to kind of slowly move away, I think, and try something that felt familiar but still wasn't too much, affiliated with some of the things that, we disagreed with. And for a little while, we were there, but especially, as we were deconstructing and dissecting what we grew up with, we started realizing more and more that we didn't agree with a lot of the things there. And there was still very much the stance that they took of being against LGBTQ people. And so it was really hard to be in that space and see that they're still not fully on board with who we are. And so it was when COVID hit that I was pregnant, and they were deciding that they were going to open back up in like July of 2020. And I was like, there's no way we can't go back there. I'm immunocompromised and I'm pregnant, and there's just so much uncertainty. Like, we can't do that. And so that was finally what really got us out of that bubble and really broke free of that, was realizing that we can't go back to a church that is not going to protect people. And I think that finally helped us break free from the church that we grew up in. And we started watching more videos online during that time of people expressing different points of view, and we spent more time in therapy, and it was and realizing that, like, we need to figure out what kind of environment we want to raise our child in. And it was, we hadn't found a place, And it was, I guess 2021, 2022 by that point. I'm trying to remember now when exactly it was. It's all blurring together. But when I went with a friend to, it was an event downtown, and we stopped at your booth.
Yeah, we were at Azalea Fest at a Pride booth.
Yes.
And our church had just wasn't even started, wasn't even an idea yet. We were just trying to figure out
doing the
meetings and trying to figure it out. So you were searching what share with us what you're willing to share about that COVID time and the changes that happened in your family that also made you look for a different type of church.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Well,
you said you're having a child.
Exactly. And like, especially like for me, I thought for a while that I was bisexual, and I was still holding on to that a little bit. I felt more comfortable with the term bisexual, just still because of lingering, homophobia from my upbringing. And it was actually, I watched a YouTube video by a YouTuber, Elena Joy, and her journey of, coming out as bisexual and then realizing that she was actually a lesbian. And I was like, oh. And hearing more of her story and more of that, I was like, oh, that sounds familiar. And hearing her talk about compulsory heterosexuality, that was a big thing. Yes. I think, honestly, that was probably what saved me from a lot of trauma growing up was compulsory heterosexuality, because I just went along with it. I was like, yeah, no, there's no way. Like, I'm definitely straight. This is what I know. This is what I know. This is, I don't know anything else, and so this must be right. And so unpacking all of that, watching her videos and learning more. And there's this thing that she mentioned, and I looked it up. The lesbian master doc.
Yes, I remember you sent that to me. It's like, oh, wait.
There's so many things. It's fascinating.
We'll see if we can link that below in the comments.
Highly recommend looking it up because it's really interesting. But like the TLDR, like you might be a lesbian if, and there were so many things that I was like, oh wait, yeah, that is how I.
That's not how everyone thinks.
That is. Yes. Okay, I'm gay.
I love how COVID, the social media kind of blew up, the deconstruction space blew up, and all of us were learning so much from each other that we were kind of like, and because we were out of the physical realms of our churches and in this new sphere, I think that journey changed for a lot of people.
Yes.
So, we're going to talk about how you found Mosaic, and Mosaic found you. I think we kind of found each other at the same time. First, we just want to explain really quickly. If you were hearing panting or you were seeing a sweetheart,
or wondering why my arm is reaching back, this is Sam. He is my very anxious little golden doodle, and he needs to be next to me. Otherwise, he gets nervous.
Yes, we are very much a dog church. So whenever Captain Shel comes to church, they bring one of their 3 dogs, and they're kind of a fixture here. So let's go back to, it was sometime after when COVID, when people were starting coming back. We were at a festival at a Pride booth, and we kind of connected. Our Mosaic at the time had a group of people that were really spending 9 months deconstructing the church before we started reconstructing it. And so you came in the middle of that period.
Yeah. I remember it was a very different experience for me just coming into, I can't remember where you were meeting at the time.
We were at Hope Recovery. A recovery church in town.
Yes. And I came in there, and we went with another couple, just so that way we felt a little more comfortable. Yeah, it was yeah, our baby was really small back then, and just toddling around. And it was just such a comfortable space, though. I just remember walking in there, and it was just very relaxed, and the energy was very different than other churches that I've walked into. And um, I think there were still a few people there that are still here with us now. Mm-hmm. And it was just really awesome hearing the conversations around just breaking down. Because I also knew nothing about the United Methodist Church by that point. And so hearing it deconstructed, and you were explaining why the Methodist Church does things that they do. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because there's so many traditions that I don't really think about that like I grew up with, but like no one ever really fully explained like why they were done, or like maybe it was like very briefly explained, but like in my kid brain it didn't fully make sense. I don't know. But it was really, really awesome to hear you just so candidly speaking about these traditions and why they're important, or why they're maybe not necessarily that important. And like really like being critical of the belief system in general. And I respected that so much, and I think that's what drew me in, was the honesty. And I just knew, I was like, this is something really special, and I want to be a part of it.
I felt like as we were doing that, it was a lot for me too, to kind of finally just say things and talk about things. And the Methodist Church, I also grew up Southern Baptist, and the Methodist Church gave me permission to question. And then to be in a group where we were given permission, given a grant, given a new church blessing to question with the Methodist Church. I mean, it's still, like, I got chilled, it still is kind of crazy. And then we were also developing what our church was going to be. And we knew that we had a lot of younger families in this area. We had a lot of children growing up in this area who were being harmed by the school system, by the community. And so we knew we needed a safe space. We knew we needed someone to kind of take that lead. And so one day you and I went to have pizza together.
Yeah, you invited me to have pizza. Yes. We went to Mellow Mushroom.
Yes, we did. And just started kind of dreaming about what it could look like to have a church that gives kids the space that we both needed as kids.
Yeah. And I remember you asking me if I wanted to lead the ministry here for children and youth. And that was such an emotional thing for me to hear, just because I always felt called to work in children and youth ministry. All through college, I stayed in the town I grew up in, and I was able to be an adult leader in the youth group I grew up in, and that was really important to me. And I always felt like that was something that I was meant to do, is to work with children and youth. And in the space I grew up in, being someone assigned female at birth, you're not allowed to have a position of leadership of sorts. We had unofficial leaders of sorts, but they weren't given the highest leadership positions. And even when, I know one woman in particular that I grew up hearing from that was so knowledgeable and so just amazingly talented, but yet she was not given the highest position that I feel like she deserved, just because of her gender. And so to hear you say that you wanted me to have that position was a dream come true, because I've always wanted to be able to give kids the tools and the resources and the love that I so wanted, but didn't even realize I wasn't getting as a child always. And so it was a really, really emotional experience when you asked me.
It was emotional for me too, just thinking about what I needed as a child so badly, and then seeing someone who had this beautiful family and this beautiful love of God and this willingness to learn and grow. And the way that you came into the Methodist Church, and you didn't come in just accepting, you were discerning from the time you got in. You were diving into videos and diving and asking questions. And now, like, as we have grown as a church, I think that the development of our program, along with seeing all the changes that you've gone through in the church and all of the comforting things that we were able to witness in your own life, it's been a blessing. So if someone is out there looking for a church in your particular area, especially if you have children, but also if you're looking for a church, what are maybe 5 things that you think people should ask, look for, feel like they're able to do if they go into a church?
I think that the biggest thing personally with me, since I only came out as non-binary while we've been with Mosaic too. So I'm still in that process of unpacking things. And so I think, just from my personal experience, would be asking them how they help kids on their coming out journey. I think that what resources do they have for kids who are coming out as LGBTQ? That is a big, big thing. And how they would handle if a child came out to them, those leaders. I think hearing them, answering that question, I think will tell you a lot about the people they are.
So I love that idea, not thinking, hey, if I am out, but if a child comes out, not only how we handle it, but resources. And one of the things we will do is below in the comments or on our website, we'll share some resources that pastors, church committees, church leaders can use for that, because we have had to find those. That has been part of this search we're on.
Yes.
So that's 2. One is being able to approach with those questions, and then having people who are resourced and ready to walk that road with families.
Yes,
that's absolutely pretty big. What are some other things that you look for that you would advise looking for in a church?
I would also, a big thing is diversity. Yes. Because growing up in a church that was majority white, I seek out those spaces where everyone feels safe. Yes. Because I know that I will feel safe there, but also that primarily, like, that they're just welcoming, just truly welcoming and accepting and loving towards all people when you see that diversity there. And I think another big thing is looking at what they do for the community around them is a big thing. Because there are a lot of churches out there that talk a big game but are not actually living out. Yeah. And growing up the church, I remember they would always talk about how don't leave behind the lessons that you learned this Sunday. Don't walk out of here and forget everything and just go about doing stuff. And yet I didn't always see people actually doing that. I heard that every Sunday, and yet didn't always. There was a lot of contradiction there. Yeah. But I think that, you just need to make sure that church is actually truly talking the talk and walking the walk.
Yes, that's great. So you've named 4 things. The last one, I want to touch on something that I know is very important to both of us. We talk about diversity and having multiple people, but one of the big things we do at Mosaic is look at how the church has been very wrapped up in ableism and especially neurodiversity. Yes. And so when coming to a church, what are you looking for when it comes to neurodiversity? I know that it is a hard thing. It's something we've wrestled with here, how we handle that. So
Yeah.
what do you think, especially with children, what should a church look like?
I mean, so yeah, asking them how, if their leaders are able, and are trained to handle, not handle is a bad word, but or to understand neurodiverse children is a big, big thing. As someone who is neurodiverse, neurospicy,
Neurospicy.
I think that's so, so important because being inclusive, not just of all bodies, but of all minds is so important because, neurodiverse minds are a reflection of our creator as well. That we see God using all types of bodies and brains in scripture. And it's important for our churches to be loving and inclusive of all bodies and brains. And I think so just, having the resources and understanding to be able to make all brains and bodies feel included is so important. Having spaces for when kids are overstimulated where they can go and
adults
absolutely. We have a tent downstairs that's this beautiful calming blue that a kid can go and sit in, and fidget toys and things to help because a lot of times kids are really loud and overstimulating, and sometimes there's a kid with ADHD who is being very loud and excited, and there is a child with autism who's feeling very overwhelmed by that, and sometimes they need a break from each other. And so having those spaces where we can help the child with autism calm down and reset and refocus is so important. And so just having leaders who have the knowledge and having a space that has the tools to help them is so important.
I think one of the things, if you are at worship here, the first part, Captain Shel and all of the kiddos are in here, and it is beautifully chaotic. There are kids running around. We can be on the stage doing something, and one of the kids will come up. And it's just this open, welcoming kind of household atmosphere, I think, that's created, and there's no shaming. And then when the kids leave and we all send our best wishes with Captain Shel because they are excited, even for the adults, there is space to move around, to ask questions, to understand that people worship, sit, participate in different ways. And I think that's been very powerful. So we're going to close with a question we're going to ask everybody. Right now, the church seems to be pulled in multiple directions. Social justice focused churches like the Methodist Church are finding that we are being hit on all sides with trying to protect everyone, trying to do all of this. But if there is one focus that you, for your personal journey, for your family, for the kids that you work at, one thing you want our church to stop and actually spend time in. And I know this is a very large question, but what's something you would say, hey, bishops, hey, leaders of the church, let's take some really solid time and work on this. What would that be?
I think it is actually what we were just talking about with having the tools and the resources and the knowledge to help everyone, not just the neurotypical, not just the cis het, but making sure that those, children's ministers, children's pastors, have all of those resources at their disposal, because there are going to be those families who walk in your doors who need to feel immediately like they belong.
Yes.
And so even if you say, well, we don't have anybody like that right now, well, get ready for it because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So have those things ready, be ready for when that family with a non-binary child walks in the door.
Yes.
To have those fidget toys ready for the neurodivergent kids who really want to be sitting listening to your pastor speak, but maybe just need a little something to hold on to so that way they can be more attentive. I think it's just so important.
That welcoming part we found with people who come here, that first few moments, especially when people have left the church because they've been harmed, that first few moments is vital. It means, and it can be something as simple as having pronoun pens or fidget toys. And then back it up with having leaders, including the lead pastor, and I say that as lead pastor, having done the work, read, researched to understand the beautiful diversity. Instead of just saying you're welcome, to really understand people and celebrate people. I am so grateful for this time to talk to you, and grateful for everything you do with Mosaic and our kids and our families. Captain Shel doesn't just take care of the young kids, they take care of the youth and the parents and create an inviting space. And as we go on this journey with you online, you're going to get a chance to learn more about how they are creating not just a safe space, but a space that celebrates the diversity of all of God's children. This is Mosaic. You have just enjoyed a long chat with one of our friends at the sanctuary, where we're creating a safe and inclusive space for everyone. Thank you for listening.